Nassau Community College. More information is available online at choosenassau.com/learn.
Catch Nassau Lions men's and women's basketball action live on Thursday night at 6. Come on, let's go Lions!
The voice of Nassau Community College.
Thanks for making us your number one preset again. Named Best Radio Station in the Beth Page Best of Long Island Awards in 22, 23, and now 24.
Available everywhere on iHeartRadio.
WHPC HD Garden City.
90.3 WHPC.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on nccradio.org. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. This great program is repeated Sundays at 11 p.m. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Pearl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This, of course, all depends on when you are listening and watching. Gewalt, how could I forget? You can actually see us right now, together with Richard Ruttenberg on Facebook Live at WHPC, or my own page at facebook.com/Anshel Pearl. And either way, you can send us a post, send us a note, send us a question. So what do I say right now? Hello on the radio, hello online, and hello to the world. Today, I'd like to begin to talk about next Saturday. Next Shabbos, January the 27th, 2024, has been designated as the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The background is that the United Nations General Assembly designated January 27th, the anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camps. They designated this as the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. A time to remember the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust and the millions of other victims of Nazi persecutions. So today I'm going to discuss this topic and also share with you my upcoming words and presentation to be made in front of all the Nassau County judges as they gather this coming Friday for a very special gathering in honor of this important date. First, as we are witnessing an alarming rise of anti-Semitism around the globe, it is more important than ever for us to recognize the critical lessons of Holocaust history as we commemorate the victims and honor the survivors. And with that in mind, I want to say a special hello to Joseph Kavanaugh, Zalman Weg, an unbelievable Yid, Linda Zellickson, Jean Brandonston, Abner Zarabi, unbelievable. It may be cold, Abner, but the heart is still warm. And everybody joining us on the radio and elsewhere around the world. And I know there are many, many wonderful new listeners this week. So I tip my hat to you, and I say, unbelievable. Thank you for joining us. You see, anti-Semitism, back to our subject today, is really the greatest conundrum at the heart of Jewish existence. Let's be honest. Why have we been so hated by the family of nations? Much ink has been spilt trying to explain what anti-Semitism is. What causes it, and why. Whenever it looks like things are getting better, shine, it rears its ugly head again. So today, allow me to share with you what does Judaism itself say about this. The Talmud tells us that at Mount Sinai, the place where the Torah was given, was named so because it initiated a hatred. Sinai, Sinai, Sinna. That's the Hebrew word for hatred. But it all began there. What do I mean? You see, at Sinai, the Jewish people were tasked with a very important sacred duty. And that is to quote the Torah, to be a kingdom of priests. What does that mean? It means, as we say hello to Jonathan Wolf, it means that we have a mission to serve as beacons of morality and justice to the world. As a consequence of accepting this mandate, and that is to be a light unto the world, we have become the subject of the oldest and most persistent hatred in history. Interesting. Why should this be? In fact, in the book of Numbers, God instructs to confront the Midianites. And there we have a description. God says, avenge the vengeance of the children of Israel. And the Medrash relates that Moses questioned God. Why do you ask us to take vengeance and have vengeance? It's about you. Moses said like this, if we had been uncircumcised, remained uncircumcised, or worshipped the stars and denied the commandments, they would not have persecuted us. They have done so only because of the Torah and the commandments that you have given. So like it's your fault, God. Historically, some enemies of the Jewish people have seen this dynamic of Jewish particularism as a nuisance. Others see it as an existential threat. Let me explain further. In the book of Esther, Haman tries to bribe King Ahasuerus with 10,000 talents of silver for permission to rid his kingdom of Jews. What does Ahasuerus say? The money is given to you, as is the nation, to do whatever you want. What's the interaction? The Talmud explains in the tractate of Megillah. It describes two types of anti-Semites. The first is Ahasuerus. He's a mild kind of anti-Semite who sees the Jewish people as a mound, an annoying anomaly, an eyesore that stands out and refuses to blend in. Sociologists refer to this type of xenophobia as the dislike for the unlike. They're different. Get rid of them. The second is Haman. That's the ardent anti-Semite who views the Jews as a ditch. What do you mean a ditch? A moral conscience that exposes an existential hole and an emptiness in the heart of the very anti-Semite himself. People who live with holes in themselves. The owner of the mound, Ahasuerus, tells the owner of the ditch, relieve me of my mound and be rid of your ditch. I ask for no payment in return. Hitler, Yamach Shemai, one of the most notorious anti-Semites who ever lived, summed up this sentiment chillingly in a private conversation with his confidant, Hermann Rauschning. What did he say? The struggle for world domination is between me and the Jews. All else is meaningless. He goes on to say the Jews have inflicted two wounds on the world, circumcision for the body and conscience for the soul. I come to free mankind from their shackles. Elsewhere, he elaborated further. Providence has ordained that I should be the greatest liberator of humanity. I am freeing man from the restraints of an intelligence that has taken charge, from the dirty and degrading self-mortification of a false vision called conscience and morality, and from the demands of a freedom and independence that can only a very few can bear. Historically, there have been two contradictory reactions to us. One is called Judeophobia, frustration and hatred directed at the voice of conscience that we represent. Or on the other extreme, Judeophilia, an admiration and the desire to learn and to emulate. To learn. And of course, this has created an irrational aura of what I would call simultaneous fear / suspicion and awe / or infatuation around the Jewish people in the eyes of the world. I must tell you, dear friends, ultimately, Judaism is a distinction that we cannot hide from. History has demonstrated that assimilation doesn't help prevent anti-Semitism, as evidence in the fate of the 20th century German Jewry, who had achieved an extraordinary level of integration into the highest echelons of society. We're going back to the 20s and the 30s. In fact, assimilation serves only to advance the cause of anti-Semitism in ridding the world of its moral torchbearers. Anti-Semitism will rear its ugly head whether we choose to hide our Judaism or openly embrace it. If we choose the latter, to openly embrace it, thereby owning up to our role as a light, to be example to the world, guess what? Best kept secret. We will be fulfilling our destiny to help transform the moral landscape of civilization. Alluding to the transformative potential of the Jewish mandate, I share with you the words of John Adams. I know there's people out there who enjoy Sam Adams, but I'm talking about John Adams. He was the second president of the United States, and he writes the following: I will insist the Hebrews have contributed more to civilize men than any other nation. If I was an atheist and believed in blind eternal faith, I should still believe that the fate has ordained that the Jews to be the most essential instrument for civilizing the nations. They have given religion to 3/4 of the globe and have influenced the affairs of mankind more and more happily than any other nation, ancient or modern. These are the words of John Adams. I also share with you the noted Christian historian, Paul Johnson. He put it this way: all the great conceptual discoveries of the human intellect seem obvious and inescapable once they've been revealed, but it requires a special genius to formulate them for the first time. The Jews have this gift. To them, we owe the idea of equality before the law, both divine and human, of the sanctity of life and the dignity of all human persons, of the individual conscious and so a personal redemption, of collective conscious and of social responsibility. Furthermore, of peace as an abstract ideal and love as the foundation of justice, and many other items that constitutes the basic moral furniture of the human mind. He goes on to say, Paul Johnson, without Jews, he means the world, might have been a much emptier place. Commenting further on the uniqueness, role, and the presence of us in the development of human society, I share with you the words of Rabbi Avram Yitzchak Kook. He pointed out that all of great civilizations throughout time, such as Egypt, Greece, Persia, and Rome, appeared on the stage of history, made their contribution, said their piece, and moved on. The Jewish people, however, emerged into the stage of ancient history and are still standing here. Stuttering? For we have yet to clearly articulate the message that we are here to say. So instead of going underground to hide our Jewish identity, as some tend to do during times of persecution, let us stand up and proudly proclaim to the world the message that we were summoned to at Mount Sinai to deliver. So what's the big idea this morning? Anti-Semitism is fueled not by the hatred of Jews, but by the message and the morality of Judaism. Therefore, assimilation is part of the problem, not the solution. I bring you back to March 4th, 1962. A young leadership cabinet of the UJA came to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe to receive his guidance before they were to travel to Poland. What I share with you now is an excerpt of that exchange that evening. The young Jewish leadership shared with the Rebbe, we are going on a pilgrimage to commemorate the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And we're going to go to Warsaw and to Auschwitz. As we get deeper and deeper into the assigned readings and dealings there, we're all having many problems with the questions that the Holocaust and Auschwitz bring. What did the whole thing mean? This was the question of this group to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe responded, if history teaches us something that we must not repeat or must emulate, the best lesson can be taken from the destruction of the Second Temple. We witnessed something so terrible. It must bring every one of us to become more identified with our Jewishness. Every one of us has an obligation to fight Hitler, Yamach Shemai, which can be done by letting that which Hitler had in mind to annihilate, not only to continue, but to grow bigger and on a deeper scale. Hitler was not interested so much in annihilating the body of Jewishness as he was interested in annihilating the spirit, as we've been discussing today. He decreed that the spiritual and moral ideas that the Jewish people embody must not infect the German people, the Russian people, or the Polish people. If you influence a Jew not to become assimilated, but to profess his Jewishness, the Rebbe continued to this group, their pride and inspiration and joy, that is the way to defeat Hitlerism. If someone does his or her best in their personal life to be Jewish, so that everyone sees that in the street, that he is or she is who she is, that his home is a Jewish home, and that he and she is proud, and that it is not a burden but a pride, wow, that person's life defeats the idea of what Hitlerism is all about. So the Rebbe continued to this wonderful group. When you go to Auschwitz, you must profess that Auschwitz cannot happen again. You can assure it by becoming a living example of a living Jewish person. I now would like to share with you, with Hashem's help, my comments that I plan to present this coming Friday at 12:45 p.m. at the Supreme Court of Nassau County in front of the entire Nassau County judicial leaders. Almighty God, who remembers all forgotten things, on this mournful day, this is in conjunction with the January 27th day, the Holocaust Remembrance Day. On this mournful day, we humbly pause to reflect on, does the Holocaust still matter? One rule of thumb by which to measure the significance of the Holocaust is that it clearly matters to the enemies of the Jewish people, so much so that many would like to blot out its memory entirely. They are impatient with us. Forget about it, they say, and move on. What good does it do to keep remembering it? That's the very same mindset that was not disturbed while 6 million were butchered, now resents our remembering those same 6 million. I'll tell you why. Because once the Holocaust is forgotten, their own complicity in it will also be forgotten, and they will feel exonerated. One should never doubt the evil intentions of tyrants. Today, when we hear the talk about destroying Israel, God forbid, and driving her people into the sea, it would be folly to discount it. History teaches us that the evil triumphs when good people remain silent. But when good people revolt against evil, evil will ultimately perish and the good will prevail. From the Holocaust, we also learn that evil, hatred, and anti-Semitism are not always the result of ignorance, but that even a highly educated, cultural, and sophisticated society can fall under the sway of evil. Germany at that time was a leader in science, art, education, literature, philosophy, music. But none of this cultural superiority was a guarantee against the cruelty and the bestiality that marked its behavior. Guess what? The guards at Auschwitz listened to Bach, no less, while their victims were gassed to death. The Holocaust reminds us of certain truths that, if forgotten, can destroy civilization. Memory is an integral aspect of being alive, the glue of one's self-identity. Memory is also an integral element in the life of a people, for a people that forgets its past has no future. We forget it at our own peril. Help us strive, Hashem. Toil and sacrifice for the coming of that day when violence and desolation shall be no more anywhere on earth, when at last nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. When all human beings, and I repeat, when all human beings, let me repeat again for those who just woke up, when all human beings everywhere may live in peace and security with none to make them afraid. Amen. God bless America. Welcome everybody again to our program, all of our new listeners and those who are actually taking the time to make a comment on our Facebook page. Laura May, thank you so much. To Lavana, good morning. Brian Allen, unbelievable. He was able to take time out from his bagel to watch us. Ira, Scott Gross is back in town. Welcome. Fantastic. Super, super duper. And let's see who else is joining us today. And everybody on the radio. Really, Jeffrey Hirsch. Unbelievable. Can't believe it. Bob Abramson. This is unbelievable. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Let's continue. You know, and these portions, these Torah readings of these weeks speak about the leaving of Egypt. One of the things that I often thought about and think about is why the rush to leave Egypt. Think about this. Do you know why we eat matzah on Passover? It all started back in Egypt. What do we read? And on that very day, all the legions of God left Egypt. And Rashi quotes from the Medrash that when the time of redemption arrived, God did not delay the exodus even for as much as the blink of an eye. Indeed, they left in haste. As we all know, they baked the dough that they would take out of Egypt, and it turned into unleavened cakes, for they could not be leavened. They didn't rise, for they were driven out of Egypt, and they could not delay, and therefore it remained a flat bread. Of course, that's the matzah. So my question is, and I know many people watching and listening to this couldn't sleep all night thinking about this. Why couldn't they wait for the dough to rise? Come on. Do you know how long it takes for dough to rise? Over the years, my dear wife, Sein Gesund, has taught many people, many women to bake challah. Her home-baked challah is legendary in our community. So one day, I asked her, how long does it take for dough to rise? What do I know? I went to yeshiva. So I asked her, how long does it take for dough to rise? Her answer was about 3 or 4 hours. I don't get it. Our ancestors had spent 210 years already in Egypt. They couldn't wait a few more hours? Come on. What's with the mad rush? Take it easy. What do they say over there in Brooklyn? Take it easy. Conventional thinking suggests that they needed to hurry before the Egyptians changed their minds and reneged on their offer of freedom. Really? Hello? After suffering through 10 devastating plagues, being wiped out physically, financially, emotionally, would the Egyptians really want to still more trouble? Come on! Was that a realistic concern? Surely they were so badly beaten that they couldn't wait to say, "Good riddance! Get out of here!" to those who had made their lives so miserable. Pharaoh himself was a broken man with no more appetite for resistance. He'd lost his own son in the final devastating plague, Shoin Fatek. So the question remains, please, what's with the rush over here? Why the rush? And ended up, all our bread ended up being matzahs. Come on. I want to share with you the Lubavitcher Rebbe's novel approach to this difficulty, arguing that it wasn't the Egyptians who were the problem. It was us. It was us! God wasn't concerned that the Egyptians might have gone back on their offer of liberation, but that the Israelites themselves might have had a change of mind. Hesta Maisa. Better the devil, you know, goes the old proverb. It must have been quite a leap of faith for the long-time slaves to leave the infrastructure of Egypt and head out into the unknown wilderness, as was so beautifully presented on Shabbos. Michael Soshnik made a presentation during a Kiddush in memory of his dear mother, Hashkala, and said the amount of faith that was needed to pick up and go into the wilderness, no water, nothing going on, into an unknown place. I can just imagine their thinking. Here we have the roof over our heads. True, there are no luxuries, but we do get fed every day. What will we have in the wilderness? No food, no bagels, just a hole, no shelter, not even water. We'd have to be crazy to leave an established country and wander off into the uncharted territory. Even with all of our problems, are we not better off just staying here in Egypt? Indeed, when they reached the sea, they called the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, and realized they were trapped, there were actually many who clamored to return to Egypt. Better to be a slave than a dead free man, they reasoned. So when the moment of the Exodus arrived, it was a dramatic window of opportunity. Had they not grasped it with both hands at that very moment, it's possible that these and other doubts might have crept in and delayed the whole experience. Thank God, they did seize the opportunity. Frankly, it can happen to us as well. We all get comfortable in our little slaveries and daily drudgeries. They might not be ideal, but they are far less intimidating than the challenges that come with new opportunities. You know, there's an old Yiddish proverb that expresses this idea. May we never get used to what we can get used to. With the passage of time, we become weary, worn down, and what was previously intolerable becomes all too acceptable. We've all experienced missed opportunities at various points in our lives. The house we could have bought, the stocks we could have sold, even the man or the woman we could have married, but we hesitated. And as another old proverb goes, he who hesitates is lost. In our lives, too, we should take advantage of many opportunities now available to us that we may not have had when we were younger, whether it's the regular Torah study, more time in the synagogue, a new mitzvah. There's so much on offer today that we easily can make up for any lost opportunities earlier part of our lives. But it takes courage to grasp the moment and embrace new visions and horizons. When the opportunity knocks, let's not miss our chance. Again, I'm really, really honored that so many people have been joining us, both on the radio. Hello, good morning, thank you, or good evening, depending if you listen to us later on. And of course, those on Facebook who are making these wonderful comments. And let me just recognize, we also want to say hello to, to Eitan Kolshevsky. Wow, Dr. Kolshevsky is in Israel. I want everyone to know that our dear friend, together with his family, have made a special solidarity trip to Israel. We wish you success, Doctor, and please as I said to you, you are representing us today in your important mission. We wish you continued success and your entire family in taking time out from our work, our life here in America, to spend some time in Israel, helping there during very, very serious times. I now would like to pivot a little bit to share with you something very, very important, something that I and the Chabad community are celebrating this past weekend, especially on Shabbos. Shabbos was the 10th day of the month of Teves, of Shvat, And let me share with you the importance of this date. Let me start off with the number 7. Everybody loves weddings. And of course, if you've ever been to a Jewish wedding, the most important part of the Jewish wedding is the smorgasbord. No. is the band. No. It's the flowers. No. You know what it is? It's the chuppah, the wedding ceremony. That's the most important part. At the chuppah, that is the very moment when two separate people become husband and wife. Specifically, at that very moment, that the groom puts the ring on the finger of the bride. Now, on what finger is the groom supposed to adorn the bride with the ring exactly? In Hebrew, the finger is called an etzbah, and the groom is supposed to put the ring on the etzbah. But which of the 5 fingers is called in Jewish law, the etzbah? And why that finger? The answer is that the etzbah is the pointer finger, or if you wish, the index finger. But again, why that finger? Why the index? Why not the ring finger? You're putting a ring on the ring finger. We all know it's first put on that index, and then it's transferred to the ring finger. Why? One of the reasons put forth by our sages is that when the groom is standing under the chuppah, opposite the bride, to her left, actually, the finger upon which he puts the ring is supposed to be the 7th finger to his right. But why specifically the 7th finger? Because as a general rule, everything at a Jewish wedding goes in 7s. The caterer charges you $70,000. No, that was a joke. That was a joke. Even Kim says, no, in her case, it wasn't 70,000, it was 700,000. Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. Why? Everything's in 7. The Sheva brachas. There are 7 blessings recited under the chuppah. The 7 times the bride circles the groom to check out if the tuxedo is, covers him enough. The 7 times the bride circles the groom. The 7 days of the meals after the wedding, and so on. So now we have another question. Why the 7 already? Why the 7? Enough already. People are holding on to the chairs. They say, Rabbi, please, why 7? What's the significance of 7? The Rebbe explains in a letter that every young couple getting married is building a new world. As the verse says, as your Creator gladdened you in the Garden of Eden of old, so, just like God created the universe in 7 days, so too every young couple creating a new universe also does so in 7 days with 7 blessings. Therefore, we find that the number 7 is a very important and central number. And not just when it comes to weddings, but in a lot of places in Judaism. Does anybody know where else we find 7 in Judaism? Well, I'm going to tell you 7 all over. We also have the 7 Noahide laws. These are 7 rabbinical mitzvahs as well. The 7-day holidays of Passover and Sukkot. And the 7 major holidays of the Jewish calendar, which are Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Hanukkah, Purim, Passover, and Shavuos. Shabbos, let's not forget, is the 7th day of the week. And on Shabbos itself, when we read the Torah, there are 7 aliyahs, or 7 individuals are called to the Torah. There are actually 8, but the 8th only hears a repeat of the part of the 7th. When a close relative passes away, one mourns for 7 days. The menorah in the temple, in the Holy Temple, had 7 branches. And of course, Barry Wall is planning to buy up all the 7-Up, the 7-Elevens, and make them kosher. Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. Barry, we wish you continued success. And so on and so forth. This isn't just in the Torah, but also in the very nature of creation. There are many things in the world that come in sets of 7. Anybody know what comes in 7 in the world? Hello? Didn't you go to school? There are 7 continents. Historically, the world's great bodies of water have been divided into 7 seas. We also find the number 7 in music. There are 7 notes on the Western musical scale. And for those of you who visited Las Vegas, oy vey, okay, take it easy, everybody. Don't give out all the secrets over here. What goes to Las Vegas remains in Mineola. For those of you who've visited Las Vegas, you're surely familiar with the lucky 7s. How do you think I know about that? If I'm not in my shul, I'm in Las Vegas. So why indeed are so many things associated with the number 7? Simple, baby. Because this number reminds us of the creation of the world. That God created the universe in 7 days. But there's something else about the number 7. We've all heard the expression, I feel like I'm in 7th heaven. When I go to shul on Shabbos, I feel like I'm in 7th heaven. When I come to the radio station, I feel like I'm in 7th heaven. I don't think Kim believes that. Okay, and Judaism believes in the concept there are 7 layers to heaven. And of course, there are many people who love that cake called the 7-layer cake. Have you ever had that, Kim? 7-layer cake? Oh, I see. You went to the right Hebrew school. Along comes the Medrash and says something very interesting. When God created the universe, He found in this lowest of worlds, meaning that it was here, at this physical level of existence, that it was felt that there is a creator to the universe. And then came along Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, and ate from the tree of knowledge. And this sin pushed away God, meaning that now this physical universe was less aware there is a creator to the universe. The very fact that they had made this mistake proved that they weren't thinking about God. And so the Shekhinah, the divine presence, retreated up from the physical universe to the first heaven. What was mankind's next mistake? Cain killing Abel. This too distanced God from the universe, pushing him even further away, so to speak. Now the Shekhinah rose up to the second heaven, meaning the people knew even less that there was a creator to this universe. Then came the sin of Enosh and his generation. That was the generation that we began worshipping idols, pushing God even further out to the third heaven. The next sin, which was all familiar with us, that we're all familiar with, is the generation of the flood. These people not only worshipped idols, but also sinned amongst themselves, stealing, kidnapping, murder were things they excelled at, meaning that they forgot there was a creator to the universe even further. And so the Shekhinah retreated to the fourth heaven. And so the matter continued to the next generation, the generation of the tower. And everyone's heard that story, how an entire society got together to build the legendary Tower of Babel, to make a name for themselves, to become gods. For these people, idol worship wasn't enough. They wanted to be the idols themselves. They wanted to be the gods. And so they, too, pushed the Shekhinah to the fifth heaven. And then came the people of Sodom, where giving charity was not only in vogue, but even against the law. Anybody caught giving charity was sentenced to death, a new low in moral corruption. Not only did they consider themselves gods and do whatever they wished, but more so, they forbade anyone to commit any moral act and forced others to act with corruption and evil. This pushed the Shekhinah to the sixth heaven. And finally, along came the ancient Egyptians in the time of Abraham, a group of people who had no problem snatching away his wife, Sarah, for the king without any questions. They didn't ask her, and they certainly didn't ask Abraham. and they succeeded in pushing God back to the seventh heaven. And so, as the Rambam Maimonides tells us, the word God was forgotten from the lips of all beings and from their minds, and they did not perceive him until there was born the pillar of the universe. He was referring to our patriarch Abraham. And with Abraham followed now 7 righteous persons. Abraham came along and began teaching people that there is a creator of the universe, and began battling the idol worshippers and all those who committed immoral acts. And Abraham succeeded in bringing back the awareness of God to the universe. And the Medrash puts it, he brought the Shekhinah back from the 7th to the 6th heaven. His son Isaac continued in his ways and also taught the universe there is a God. And he brought it down a bit further from the 6th to the 5th. Yaakov, Yitzchak's son, Jacob, took it further. He moved to Haran, where he spread the idea that there is a creator of the universe, thus bringing the Shekhinah a little closer to the universe. He brought it down to the 4th heaven. In the following generation, it was Jacob's son Levi, who had been appointed as the dean of the school of higher learning of the yeshiva. His job was to teach the ways of God and to safekeep Abraham's instructions. He instructed his family that they should never cease. The Torah should never cease. And therefore, the sons of Levi appointed afterwards to continue this on. This all I'm quoting from Maimonides. It was Levi who brought down the Shekhinah to the 3rd heaven. Levi had a son by the name of Kahat, who continued his father's ways, bringing it down the Shekhinah to the 2nd level. Good morning to Karen Dumbeck, Patty Fuchs, unbelievable. Kahat, in turn, had a son by the name of Amram. He was the leader of the entire Jewish people in Egypt. He brought the Shekhinah down to the 1st heaven, meaning that he further strengthened the knowledge among the Jews in Egypt that there was a creator of the universe. And then came the 7th generation, Moses himself, and he brought down the Shekhinah to earth. He succeeded to bring things to the point that God himself, so to speak, descended and revealed himself at Mount Sinai. And then everyone not only believed that there was a God, but saw and heard with physical eyes and ears, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God. And the Medrash adds something very interesting. Kol Shivin Chavivim. All 7s are beloved. This means that not only is the number 7 special, but the 7th in every set of 7 is the most special of all. For example, Shabbos, the 7th day of the week, is the most beloved day of the week. King David, for example, was the 7th son of his father Yishai. And the same thing is with the patriarchs. Moses was the most beloved of them all. In the first Maimah, or the first Hasidic discourse that the Rebbe delivered upon accepting the leadership of the Chabad movement on the 10th day of Shvat, it was yesterday on the Shabbos, the first opening salvo, the opening statement of the Rebbe, he spoke about this very subject. That is why I'm sharing this with you. And the Rebbe made a connection between the 7th generation preceding the giving of the Torah and explained that before the coming of Mashiach, too, there would be 7 generations with which to prepare the world for the coming of Mashiach. And the Rebbe explained that the 7 generations of the Chabad leaders, beginning with the Alter Rebbe, prepared the world and popularized the awareness that there is a God everywhere in the world. In our generation, my friends, we are the 7th generation. We are the one that we have been tasked with that need to bring the Shekhinah finally down to this world, a world of goodness and kindness and no more wars. And as the Medrash tells us, all 7s are beloved forever, which means that we, my friends, are the real lucky 7s. This is the celebration that I'm speaking about. This past Shabbos we celebrated the 74th anniversary of the Rebbe's leadership. And I want to share with you, as time allows, about the Rebbe, the Lubavitch Rebbe of righteous memory, whose life and work has been a blessing not only to so many of us, but indeed to the entire world. And this past Shabbos in our shul and throughout the world, we all marked this 74th year since the assumed leadership of Chabad. The Rebbe took over the position in 1950 and spearheaded a revival of Judaism out of the ashes of the Holocaust. As I say, hello to Tom LaGrega, who notes, thank you for sharing your spirit and knowledge. And good morning, Rabbi, from Rosemary Hoffman. Thank you so much. To understand just a bit how he did so, let's take a look at a remarkable tradition from ancient Israel. Almost everybody is familiar with the Western Wall, the Kotel, which is all that remains of the outer wall of the Second Temple. It was destroyed by the Romans almost 2,000 years ago. But unless you've been back to Jerusalem recently, you may not know that the archaeologists have recently uncovered almost the entire southern outer wall of the temple, including the remnants of the actual steps that our ancestors ascended to enter the temple grounds. And I and Bluma, when we went up those steps. We were taken on a tour of the southern area of the Temple Mount. Now, I was reminded of these archaeological sites when I came across a beautiful passage in the Talmud about the temple and the role it played in building Jewish community. Here's what I learned. People came in from the south and into the plaza, and then came in and moved around to the eastern side and entered into the temple. But everybody came in from the southern steps. People coming to pray at the temple would enter up the steps through a gate onto the right on this building. They would be there to bring their offerings, and when they left through another door, which was through the left exit. That is, they would enter the area and leave in a counterclockwise manner. But mourners, says the Talmud, in the Mishnah and Midas, one who loved one, let's say a person has a loved one who's gravely ill, or people looking for a lost object, would do the opposite. They would enter through the left gate, walk clockwise, and exit through the right side. Now, did you respond to that Talmudic passage the way I did? Why are individuals looking for lost objects grouped with mourners and the gravely ill? I can understand having a separate category for the people who lost a loved one, who are struggling to survive in a terrible illness. Okay? It's understandable that they would feel out of sync with the people coming to the temple to celebrate. But why is the person who merely lost something in the same category? Why would they enter through the left door and come out, and they would leave in a clockwise fashion as opposed to the others? Why would this be? Why were they put together? One answer is, you know the feeling when you're looking for something and can't find it? You're sure you put the car keys right there a few minutes ago, and now you're running late and you can't find them anywhere, and that can drive you mad, and you can become obnoxious and unfit for company for anybody. That's one explanation, that the person who's lost something also feels out of whack and therefore feels, moves in through the left door. But a second and deeper explanation is that the lost object referred to in this passage isn't a physical object, like your cell phone or remote or keys, but it's something spiritual. This is a person who has lost his or her faith in himself or in God, and is now coming to the temple hoping, yearning to find it there. But even if we now understand why these spiritual seekers were grouped with the mourners and the sick, why was it the tradition for them to walk upstream against the flow of traffic? Everybody else came in through the right and went counterclockwise. Why was this done? This was not to embarrass them or to marginalize them, not to distance them from the others, but in fact to accomplish the opposite. It was a simple and ingenious device designated to help them. You see, everybody who moves through the temple in a direction opposite to the normal path is clearly someone who needs your help. A mourner needs to be comforted. One who is ill or has a sick loved one in the house needs help and prayers. And those who have lost their faith need encouragement to restore it. This custom involved emotional empathy and mutual caring, and a united brought us all together in one community. Consider that the one of the offerings that people would bring to the temple was called the korban chatas, the sin offering, brought by a person who had done something wrong. People brought this offering to begin to make up for what they had done. The Talmud tells us that there was no happier person in Jerusalem than the one who had brought that offering and left the temple knowing that they had been forgiven. Now imagine a person who has lost faith in himself, the man who doubts whether he can ever grow and change and improve. He approaches the temple, walks through the left door, and meets people on their way out, people who feel wholesome, forgiven, confident about themselves, close to God, and they say to him, "Don't lose faith in yourself, in your soul, in your neshama. I was once in your place, but human beings are capable of change and growth. Don't give up." So we see that the temple was a space that brought all of us together in love and caring. Jews with faith, without, Jews who were moving clockwise and Jews who were moving counterclockwise, united to build something no one could create on their own. This is the way you build a home for Hashem on earth. This is how you build a Jewish community. And this is exactly what I want to share with you today, what the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, set out to do 74 years ago. The Rebbe's leadership began in 1950. This is the anniversary yesterday of Yud Shvat, the 10th of Shvat, just after the Jewish world in Europe, from which he came, had been almost totally obliterated in the Holocaust. America, his new home, was a country that until then had dissolved Jewish identity in its welcoming warmth, like a teaspoon of sugar in hot tea. In those days, many were disillusioned, like the Jews entering the temple from the left entrance. The Jewish world was in mourning, critically ill, and many had lost their faith. It was then that the Rebbe made a decision that was to ultimately change the face of the Jewish world. He did something no Jewish leader had ever done before. He dispersed his own community and began sending his students to communities and university campuses throughout the United States. This task was fraught with immense difficulty, both spiritual and financial. But over the years, the Rebbe sent emissaries, shluchim, to virtually every place on earth where a Jewish person could be found. The emissary's task was to build centers where all Jewish persons could come together and feel at home without conditions or qualifications. The Rebbe wanted every one of us, however remote geographically or spiritually, to know that they are valued. He wanted us all to know, no matter which temple gate we might be walking through at the moment, we all count. We each have a unique contribution to make to Jewish life. You see, we can go in one of two ways. We can build separate Jewish communities, isolated and unto ourselves. They care only for themselves, to take care only of their own children, educate their own constituency, and build institutions to take care of only their own needs. Or we can embrace the Rebbe's vision. We can build a community modeled on the ancient temple in Jerusalem that opens itself to the entire Jewish world and says, my friends, please join us. Let us celebrate our Jewishness together. A community that seeks to educate and help not just its own, but feels the responsibility to every person no matter where their spirituality. And that is what the Rebbe set out to achieve in 1950. And today we see the fruits of his success. Briefly, the Chabad house, right? To illustrate, today we're familiar with the phenomenon of the Chabad Center or Chabad house. Yet, I think this is one of the most misunderstood phrases in Jewish world today. Let me explain. If you go into a lighthouse, you find light. If you go into a house of representatives, hopefully you'll find representatives. If you visit Mark Twain's house, you will find everything you ever wanted to know about Mark Twain. But if you walk into a Chabad house, the only thing you don't find is a center full of Chabadniks. Hello, what happened? You will, however, find every other kind of Jew. Secular and religious, the grateful Yid, and the not-so-grateful. You will find conservative, reform, and non-affiliated, all the different wonderful names that we've found ourselves to try to divide ourselves. But everybody feels at home. And this is what makes it a Chabad house. The definition of Chabad house is a place where all of us feel at home. A man in a state of deep depression wrote a letter to the Rebbe. The Rebbe went something like this. I would like the Rebbe's help. I wake up each morning and I'm apprehensive. I can't concentrate. I find it hard to pray. I keep the commandments, but I find no spiritual satisfaction. I go to the synagogue, but I feel alone. I begin to wonder what life is all about. I need help. The Rebbe sent a brilliant reply that did not use a single word. All he did was to circle the first word of every sentence, which was I, and mailed the letter back. The man understood the answer. The problem was that he kept on thinking about himself. Happiness is not found focusing on the I, the self. The Rebbe sought to bring us all together, to focus on the collective, and not to be limited by the I. He knew that without the Holy Temple, we would have to build miniature holy sanctuaries throughout the world where all of us could meet and grow. My friends, with that, think about these thoughts. I want to wish everybody a wonderful, safe week. Stay warm and shalom lehitraot.